What's going on, y'all? This podcast is brought to you by Modern Roots Life. Modern Roots Life is a Christian-owned and operated company, and it's bringing real health back to its roots. They offer powerful, all-natural health supplements such as beef liver, cod liver oil, beef tallow, magnesium, and mineral-rich salts, all sourced the way God intended. Clean, simple, and from the earth. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, restore mineral balance, or just fuel your family with real nourishment, Modern Roots Life has got you covered. Guys, in this community, we're trying to get healthy in our mind, in our body, in our spirit. So don't neglect your health. If you want more information, check out modernrootslife.com and check the link in my description. You know, people often ask me how they can support me. Well, I think it's pretty cool if you can support me by supporting the people who support me, and you get something in return. And being healthy is a pretty good return. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to JT's Mixtape. This is episode number 80. And if you guys are enjoying these podcasts, please give me a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you.
Come closer, my child.
Well, family, once again, I'm your host, JT, and we are Sans Demon Racers. Once again, he had some work duties that he needed to take care of, so he'll be back next week, hopefully, Lord willing. But I am blessed to have my other co-host with me, Ron to Nightheart. What's going on, Aaron?
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I was talking to Aaron about how, like, finding videos for this show every week, you know, you might think it's easy, but I'd like to have a theme. This is not your typical reaction show, so it's not me just playing videos and just saying, well, isn't that interesting? Like, we have to have conversations about these. And so each week I'm kind of have a little anxiety about finding all the videos to actually have a theme. And the Lord provides every week. So we got a great show for you today. And this is sort of a little PSA. I want everyone to know, if, like, based on whether you watch this show on YouTube, which is, you know, the way I would want you to maybe watch the show first, because it is more interesting, because it is a visual show, because we show videos. But if you guys are listeners on Apple, Spotify, or Spreaker, wherever you may find podcasts, I made a business decision, a decision about the direction of this channel altogether. JT follows JC, JT's Mixtape. I'm now posting all the audio podcasts the same day that they premiere on YouTube. So a lot of times they're going to come out earlier, because they typically premiere things at night. So if you guys do listen, if you want to listen early, you can get a preview over on Apple or Spotify. And if you guys are there, please give me a 5-star review, because it really does help the channel, helps move the algorithms to help me out. Also, of course, Patreon, these episodes of JT's Mixtape are typically up the week before, like on a Friday. So anyways, all that business out of the way, I wanted to talk to Aaron about this real quick, because Aaron's the one who turned me onto the show Foundation on Apple TV. So I'm in the last season, and I found out it's actually not the last season. I guess they got greenlit for season 4. Did you know that, Aaron?
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, it's supposed to come out later this year. But this is a little spoiler-ish, but I don't think it's going to affect too much of the show if you guys haven't watched it yet. So the main antagonist in season 3 is this character called the Mule. And he has this ability to manipulate people by telepathy, some kind of a mind control thing, just based on him having some kind of supernatural power. What I found interesting about that, what they showed in the show was that he has this power individually, but what he used was he had this basically almost like this kind of EDM guy who played music. And when this guy played music, it talked about people being like an open vessel for his control. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. You want to share what you think about that?
Yeah, no, I obviously, you know, I had feelings about that when I saw that take place, and I'm like, yeah, that's literally how it works. That's literally how it works. I mean, there's the story of the Pied Piper. There's countless stories like where people are lulled into a state of being. And what I don't think is that people, like most people, don't realize how harmful it is. And I mentioned this, I believe it was just on the last podcast, which is if, and I know here's what's crazy is that people, because we live in a society where people have multiple ways of seeing things and multiple decisions to make on things, and they don't want to see things black and white. Coming from someone who has spent more time like in the music scene and in the music industry than any other industry in my entire life, I'm telling you, it is black and white. Either the Holy Spirit is behind those chords and those words and the frequency and everything. I'm talking about every single energetic aspect of a song, or it's some other force. I'll let you fill in the blank as to what other force it could possibly be. And so, yes, they know how it works. Like they literally know how it works. They know how the frequencies work. They know how the chord progressions work. They know what's going to make people sad. They know what's going to make people happy. And Brian's not here to say it, so I'll say it. The demonic realm feeds off your energy when your heart and mind is completely flayed and opened up as a result of what is taking place in the music. So absolutely, it's used. I mean, going all the way back to like Native American tribes and other tribes all across
Yeah,
the
they had
world.
the drums and the
Right.
rhythmic beat.
Yes, exactly. They're kind of like it's almost like opening a portal, so to speak. It's like summoning and it's preparing and getting like energetically getting the hearts and people's minds ready or prepared for whatever is about to take place.
You know, I agree, but I almost have like a slightly different variation there. Maybe a question to you about that, because the way I see it is that the guy who's Magnifico or some Magnifico or whatever.
Magnifico, I think. I think it's Magnifico.
Magnifico, okay. Magnifico doesn't have any words to his song, so he's just playing some kind of just music and some kind of a rhythm. So what if it's a situation where it's not the music that is evil in itself, but it's the message that goes along with it. So it's the music is kind of disarming the people. So your guard is down and you're like open to the messages. So when the words are spoken or sung in a song, then those words kind of gain access to you. Like whatever this message is, it's easier. It's easier for you to accept. It's kind of like that. Have you ever? I mean, I'm sure lots of people have seen this, where some of these funny accounts where they take the music out of certain songs, especially like you think like a Van Halen, like "Running with the Devil," good example of that message. It sounds crazy without the music with it. It sounds silly. So it's kind of like it's a message that would just be outright rejected and laughed at without the music that goes with it. But when this music is played with that message, it's like you bobbing your head, you're tapping your foot, and you're like banging on your steering wheel, like playing the drums on it. So that message would be rejected if it wasn't for the melodic rhythm and vibrations and frequencies that open you up to that.
I hear what you're saying, and that is part of it, but it is also the intention that's put into the music. So, for instance, those bands and for the artists that are intentionally trying to use their songs to do those things, that music is made for that intention. They don't just like haphazardly write the music and go, "Oh, this is a beautiful chord progression. This is a beautiful this is this let's use these lyrics to deliver a message that will get right." Like it's from its inception. It is created for the purpose in which it's used. So the intentions and the energy that's put into writing every single one of those notes. That's why I would go as far as to say, like, dude, I can't even listen to most Christian music because I'm telling you, like, I call it a gift, call it whatever. I don't know what it is, but I can feel the intentions of the writer in the music, and 99% of it's fraudulent. So like I can't. It's like they might be singing, uh, oh, the reckless love of God. They might be singing something beautiful like that, but like I'm not being ushered into a place of worship because whoever might be writing that song, their intentions when they wrote the words as a worship song. But when they were writing that song, they were visualizing themselves on stage being praised with lights
Right,
on
but it's
them.
also a
And I feel
situation where,
that
like,
in the music alone.
well, there's also a situation where, as we've talked about, probably I'm gonna say ad nauseum on this show, is that there's like one guy who writes the lyrics for these songs. Like, it's not necessarily in all cases. Like a lot of these bands where one guy was like wrote the lyrics to the songs. Maybe like the lead guitarist is actually the person who came up with the rhythm and the beat for this song. So it's like it comes from two different places, but like the lyrics go into this song. So yeah, the lyrics might be good or they might be bad, but the music comes from a different inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is if that inspiration isn't the Holy Spirit, how can you trust it? And so it's so bizarre. I mean I would love to sit here and tell everybody like it's not that deep, but it is that deep. 100% it's that deep. Like music is that deep. Like carelessly listening to music throughout the day. And listen, I know this is why I don't talk about it very often because this triggers a lot of people because a lot of people are about their music. They listen to it on their drive. They listen to it on the runs. They listen to it at the gym. They listen to it all over the place. It's just my music, man. It just, okay, well then why does hardcore music get you so amped up and ready to work out?
Mhm.
Why does screamo music get you so amped up and ready to work out? Why does it like put you in a little mini rage? You know exactly when to listen to it. Why do you avoid the sad music? Because you don't like the way it makes you feel because you haven't dealt with your emotions yet and it forces you to. Like it is so much more powerful than people realize. And I don't think I feel like people should be just as, if not more cautious with what they allow to go into their ears with music than they should be with what they watch.
So what I guess I'm saying is that, but there also is more power in the tongue in our words.
It's like
So
a 1-2 punch.
right. So I agree with you because I know that you're big on the idea of like the certain megahertz in the way that it changes things. And many people have shown examples of when you put like the cymatic patterns that it makes versus like the chaos pattern versus like an orderly pattern. But
Mm-hmm.
even in the same way that everybody who's been to a church where they have the pastor come up at the end and he has the band come back up first, or like not the whole band, but then they're playing kind of like a melodic rhythm as he starts to talk at the end, and it gets all, we're gonna chill
The
down for
keyboard
a second.
pad. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna set this mood. And it obviously is done, you know, they might not realize they're doing this, but probably most of them do. It's a manipulation of your emotions to play that music,
Absolutely.
and then I'm gonna talk all soft like this, and I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna get serious for a minute after we were talking about all the other stuff, and then so yeah, then they do an altar call, and then people make decisions, but have they really made a conscious, purposeful decision that's going to be lasting and a transformational thing? Well, I mean, we don't know. Like, obviously, I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying, like, that in a lot of cases, it might not be that way because they got all the feels, and then they raised their hand or they walked up to the altar.
Well, and that's one of the issues also with like the charismatic church, for instance, is you find a lot of, and again, I'm going to trigger some people, and I'm not trying to, but there's a lot of people that go to the charismatic churches are people that struggled with drug addiction and alcohol addiction and other things, and they're looking to feel a certain way, and
Hmm.
that attracts them, and they're looking for the feeling of the presence of the Holy Spirit, which is not something that can be forced. But in churches like that, it's kind of like provoked, right? The feelings are
Yeah, it's like
provoked,
almost
but
like some people feel like they have to have goosebumps to feel the Holy Spirit's
for
presence,
it to
but you
be
can get
real,
goosebumps from lots of things.
totally. So all of that to say, my synopsis on all of that is it's not a wrong thing or a bad thing to create music that sets a vibe, that sets a tone, that makes you feel a certain way, that lends itself to a teaching on repentance, let's just say, or a teaching on the Holy Spirit, or a teaching on whatever. It really comes down to the intentions of the person delivering it, and do you trust it? So
Mhm.
like for me, like with music, it's like almost more important than picking a good pastor. Do you trust the intentions behind the music that was created that you're listening to? Like, are you just going to let it usher you into a place? Or do you trust the person that's ushering you? Because the person that wrote that is the person that's ushering you. And it's like, how do you know who you can trust? How do you know what you can do? Like you got to really know the heart behind the artist. You really genuinely do. And even then, you're still kind of trusting the Holy Spirit on whether or not you can trust it. So I know I take it a lot more serious than most people, and most people are going to say it's not a big deal. Don't touch my music, bro. It's fine. Like it's between you and the Holy Spirit, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, this is a faith issue. And yeah, you're right, because that's what we often talk about when we talk about the old world cathedrals. We talk about the sound resonance in the places and, the massive pipe organs and the choirs and the bells.
It was all
So
very intentional.
so yeah, like we're not saying like it's always bad, but I guess my main point, my main thought through that, and I agree with Aaron, is that music has a way of disarming us. So if it's a message that is godly and you can trust, I mean it's not a bad thing. It helps you get those feels that are genuine and real and do move you to a place closer to God. But you have to be very mindful. You have to be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So if these people said they sold their souls and then they're listening to their music, well, I mean, again, they've already told you their intentions. So like believe them. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about this because I was kind of blowing up my group chat with Aaron and Brian, and of course, a couple of my other group chats with my friends from high school about the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is coming out.
Gosh.
And this is so wild because we were told that like the woke stuff has kind of died out, but no, it has not died out. It's come back, or at least maybe it was weakened, but it seems like it's not done yet. It's not done yet because this movie is coming out, and the Odyssey is based on Homer's writings about Greek mythology. And again, I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of stuff because I do like to listen to the old mythologies, and I like to glean little pieces of truth from them. And I think like mythology, especially like the Iliad and the Odyssey, there's shadows of truth in this, and it helps us to maybe get a broader worldview. So I was really into this when I heard Christopher Nolan has created some of the best movies in the last 20 years.
For
So
sure.
so it takes no pleasure in me saying I can't watch it, but I wanted to show you why I don't think that I can.
This is Helen of Troy, back when this is a proper country. This is Helen of Troy in the movie Troy. And now this is Helen of Troy in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. And I'm not making this up. This is 100% true. And I'll tell you exactly why they did this. I'll tell you exactly why. Christopher Nolan, he didn't want to do this. But ultimately, he's not the person financing this movie. There's studios, there's executives, right? And you got to push out the DEI. That's a non-negotiable now. Now when you make a movie, you have to allocate big parts to the DEI gods. And this is exactly what they do. And this is further proof of how DEI and woke culture destroys everything. It is a poison. It is a plague. It is a virus that we need to eradicate from our society. Because this decision right here, again, this is not about the actress. This decision right here, it just takes you away from the movie. You know what I mean? Like, it just...
So yeah, that's the first example in this movie is the character of Helen of Troy. It's funny because like I want to say that the story about the Trojan War, was said to be mythology totally. But then archaeologists supposedly found the city of Troy at one point. It kind of reminds me a lot of like Bible history, where skeptics will say there's no proof any of this stuff actually took place, that the Hittites were in the land of Canaan, and all this kind of stuff. And then they find evidence that they actually were. So then it ends up proving the Bible. So in the same way that, because the story of Troy versus, the Greek armies and Agamemnon, I think his name is, and all that stuff, it's really not as, I don't know, I wouldn't say that it's a story that is really hard to believe. It's basically the story about how, you had what was it, 2004, Troy came out. And you remember you had, what's his name's character?
Brad Pitt?
No, not Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt played Achilles, but then you had Orlando Bloom played the guy who basically stole this other guy's wife.
Yeah.
And she was the most beautiful woman in the whole world, according to the Greeks. And so this war was fought over her. And then you have the famous story about the Trojan horse that goes into the city because the Trojans were not going to actually be beaten because their city was fortified, kind of like Jerusalem, had this gigantic wall, and the city had never been taken. So then eventually the Greeks tricked them and they put all these men in the Trojan horse, let them in there, said it was a gift, yada, yada, yada. All that stuff happened. But, like I said, it's not really even it's not talking about gods from heavens. Maybe the only mythical part about it is you had this warrior named Achilles who was awesome. He was really tough. I mean, so none of it really is like hard to really believe at any point. I mean, obviously you could imagine how many stories go. It can be exaggerated, for instance, like the prowess of Achilles. I mean, Achilles in Greek mythology, I want to say he was like maybe 1/4 demigod, something like that. His mom was supposedly a Nephilim, so he was like a quarter Nephilim. So maybe that part of it. But I mean, again, like we as Christians who believe Genesis 6, we believe that that's actually totally could have happened.
It's really not far-fetched.
No, but it really does seem like that. Yeah, the woke stuff where, no offense to this woman. I mean, from my eyes, I can't really picture her being the most beautiful woman in the world, but that's just me. That's just me. I'm not like any, if you guys think she's beautiful, fine. But the real part about it is like, this is like cultural vandalism because this is a Greek story, for Greeks and maybe even like Western society, like, because the Greeks were kind of what we're seen as like the building blocks for what we see as Western society today. So to make her a dark-skinned woman when that's got to be very offensive to the Greeks. And if you think about it, Netflix did it. Netflix does this all the time, where they made a movie about Cleopatra, and Cleopatra was played by a black woman. Well, Cleopatra famously was not Egyptian; she was a Greek who was eventually, has this rendezvous with Romans or whatever. But the point is, the story goes is that she was a Greek woman. So to portray her as, oh, well, Egypt's in Africa, so therefore she could have been African. No, if you're going by any kind of historical records, she was a Greek woman. So like, why are they doing this? So like the guy said at the very end, it's not a problem because we know that these movies are going to have this Hollywood veneer and then it's going to be exaggerated. There's licenses to these stories, but that's what it does. It just takes you out of the movie. Is it like your suspension of disbelief knowing you're watching a movie? You're like, we know that they didn't make this decision based on her being the right person to play this role. So like, why are they doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even so much about the people that they chose to fill these roles. It's more about the fact that they clearly went out of their way to choose people that don't fit the historic description of what those people looked like. And I think the more offensive choice that they made was Achilles.
Well, you know what? Okay, go ahead and talk about that because I did actually do more research in that. Supposedly, this rumor has been running like wildfire on the internet, is they took Elliot Page, who was formerly Ellen Page. What was that? Was that movie where she was pregnant? What was that movie called?
Dude, I don't remember.
I think it had Michael Cera in it. whatever. But
I
Ellen
yeah, I don't
Page
know.
was in another Christopher Nolan movie, was Inception. She was one of the main characters in that. And now she's a he, and supposedly people are saying that she's going to play, or he's going to play, the ghost of Achilles in the underworld. Now that has not been confirmed. But a lot of people have said that. And of course, that obviously got I just couldn't even believe that. But maybe it's not even true.
If she's playing Achilles, though, and that's what I was getting at, because that's kind of like what people have been speculating, is that, right? Like, in whatever form. Like, that would make more sense, but still not really. Like, still not
Well,
really.
it's like a situation where the idea on its face is absurd. It makes no sense, because even Brad Pitt, a lot of people thought, I mean, Brad Pitt's too much of a pretty boy to play Achilles. Like, Achilles is, I don't know, like, if
Rough
you
around
picture
the
him,
edges, tough guy.
you're picturing like somebody, I'd almost picture like Gerard Butler in the 300 as Achilles.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
just totally just like, not so much just handsome, but
Savage.
like just scary looking. Like, you would not want to mess with this guy.
Mhm.
So even Brad Pitt, because that's the funny part about when Troy came out, it was not well received at the time. I think because it came on the heels of Gladiator, because Gladiator was totally legit, and like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So this was a little bit more, I
It
don't
really
know.
wasn't a great movie, though. Like, let's be honest. Like, there was a few cool scenes, but like, by and large, like, it wasn't exactly like the most fantastic movie, in my personal opinion. But it's
Well,
been a long time since I've seen it.
well, yeah, right. It compares very favorably with movies today, though. And of course, when you look at the I don't think most people had much problem with the casting of that movie. It seemed like, okay, we can, again, like Brad Pitt, I would say that he was good in that movie. You know, he at some point you buy it
He
that
was
he's
Brad
Achilles.
Pitt. He
Yeah,
was
right. Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
When you make the comparison of like, at least Brad Pitt, he lifted a lot of weights before that role, and he did his best to appear to be somebody you could believe as a fearsome warrior.
Sure.
So if they did make Ellen Page or Elliot Page Achilles, it's ridiculous. It's beyond absurd. But even if it's not true, the fact that people believe it, because it is something we could see them doing. I mean, that's part of the problem. All of itself, right? Is the fact that this rumor would not have run like it has if not for people believing, like, yeah, of course they would do that. It's like, what's his name, Kathleen Kennedy from Disney. You know, put a chick in it and make it gay. Let's do that with Achilles, so we can actually believe it.
Yeah, it's all so weird, man. But I mean, on the same hand, like, it's Hollywood. Like, like, what can we trust that's being churned out by them? I think you and I are more upset and offended because it's Christopher Nolan, right? And it's like, dude, how can you make movies like Inception and The Dark Knight and like there's so many, he's made so many incredible movies that have incredible stories that are, from a filmmaking perspective, like, fantastic. The way they're filmed, the cinematography, the way they're edited, like, everything about them. So yeah, it's because the previews of what the Odyssey looks like outside of that stuff, I mean, it looks like a typical Christopher Nolan movie.
Well, it's like a situation where you have somebody like, what's his name? Who was the director of The Lord of the Rings? I forget his name for a second. Is it Peter Jackson? Yeah. So when he made that, I know a lot of like the real Tolkien nerds didn't like some of the license he took, but for the most part, he remained kind of faithful to the source material. You've got a great story, like, you know what I mean? Like, the best you can do is just not mess up what's already there. So, like, just take what's given and use the big budget that Hollywood's going to give you and flesh this out the best way you can and remain true to the story. That's all
Mhm.
you got to do. So, because the story is great. I mean, these stories are enduring. These mythologies, the reason they resonate today is because they are interesting stories, like the hero's journey, all that kind of stuff. So just don't mess it up. So, like, when you do that, and I would say that the thing for me is like that I'm kind of like your core audience for this. Like, you would think that like somebody like me would be all about this kind of stuff. And like, you're doing everything you can to make me not want to watch it. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's like cultural sabotage. You know, another example of that is, do you remember when that movie by Oliver Stone came out called Alexander, and it starred Colin Farrell?
Not off the top of my head.
It was another really kind of epic movie, but then they emphasized like his gayness or something like Alexander the Great. Like there was rumors that he was, he played for the other team
Alexander
at
the
times.
Gay?
Yeah, Alexander the Gay. Well, that's what everyone was calling it, Alexander the Gay. I want to say that Hollywood made him cut a lot of that stuff, but then he made a director's cut where it was all about his romances with these lady-looking boys. But like that is like a small part of the story, and even if it was true, like I said again, it was more like there's inferences that he played for their team. There's not like historical fact, but like if you're gonna make that like a real prominent part of the story, it's like it's offensive to lots of people because that's not really why anybody wants to learn about Alexander the Great.
Right.
Not well, I'm gonna say nobody, but I'm saying like
well, there's a community for that.
Yeah,
no,
not me though. Not me though. So like, but I'm the kind of person who would buy a ticket to go see this movie. And when I found out it's Alexander the Gay, I'm like, I'm out. Like I'm done. Like I don't want to watch this. And if you think we're over exaggerating, check out this because this is the part where Aaron was like, "Yeah, I think I'm probably going to see it," and then I sent him this.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am actually worried about the Odyssey. Like, what is this? What is it? What are we talking about? Travis Scott playing a Greek poet and like singing the story with trap music in the background, bro. This is the Odyssey. This is Greek mythology. This is an astro world. And like other casting choices that Nolan has made is just weird. Please do not tell me that the Odyssey would be the flop of the year for 2026. How shocking would that be? Like genuinely, how shocking would that be? I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting, but this was like in my top 3 most anticipated movies of the year. Man, what are we doing, bro?
Yeah, so apparently in the story of the Odyssey, part of the history of the Greeks is told like in a poem by this Demonicus or something like that. Almost like, sounds like demonic, but Demonicus or something like that. And so, yeah, there's a poem about Greek history.
Hold on. Let's close our eyes and imagine Brian's here because all right, now that we all know what was just said, let's move on.
Actually, demon kiss.
There we go.
But yeah, so apparently Christopher Nolan in all his wisdom said, you know what? We're going to use a rapper to deliver this poem, and he's going to bust a rhyme, and he's going to freestyle Greek mythology in a rap song as he mumble raps. So that part is confirmed. That's real. And the irony to that is Christopher Nolan came out and said that he didn't want to use orchestra music, like a lot of these movies would do. Like as we talked about how music kind of gets you the feels, right? So you have like this dramatic thing. Think about like what's his name? Who's the famous composer who always does the Star Wars movie? John Williams.
John Williams.
Yeah. So like the like the stuff like that makes you like really kind of resonate with Star Wars movies is a lot of the music. And think about like Indiana Jones, like all that stuff. Even like Superman.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It puts you in the place to really like, oh, this is awesome. Like this is epic. So Christopher Nolan said he's not going to do that because orchestra music really wasn't a thing back in Greek mythology. But he makes the decision that he's going to have a rapper in there doing a very modern music art form to portray this Greek tragedy or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I don't even know. Like that was, I can accept a couple of the other decisions if the storyline and the movie itself and everything follows like typical format of Christopher Nolan, but it's one of those things where, dude, of all and honestly, I can even get with him wanting to use something different and go the hip hop route. Like, listen, there's some incredible hip hop artists out there, and I could see how that could work. But of all of the people, Travis Scott, like after the Astro World
why
thing,
Travis Scott.
Well, exactly. But like after the Astro World thing took place and all of that other stuff, and plus like and I'm not looking for any smoke from any of the younger crowd, but like in my personal opinion, none of the modern rappers, like none of the new rappers that have come out in the last 10-ish years, 10 to 12 years, maybe even 10 to, I don't know, 10, 15-ish, they're not adding anything. Like they're not
No.
expanding the talent level. They're not, so it's like, that's a really tough one for me. I don't know. One would say every single one of those movies, because it's coming out of Hollywood, you can't support it. It's evil at every corner. And you may not be wrong about that. But like when I know for a fact someone was involved in a public ritual of people being sacrificed in real time at a concert and nothing happened to that person except for they got elevated even more.
Right. Exactly.
I kind of got to draw the line there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the funny thing is, as the one guy said when he's talking about Helen of Troy, the real problem with this is not us just being uptight white people who are just like, hey, don't put a black person in the movie I like. It's not that. It's the fact that if he starts rapping, it's going to take you right out of this movie. Like, because, you know, you do want to be engaged with this movie, and you want to, like, you know, be immersed in this world for a minute. And then this guy's going to start mumble rapping Greek mythology. And I'm supposed to be like, oh, yeah, it's fine.
With autotune, probably, because
Because he's
honestly,
actually
like,
not really good at what he does.
yeah, no, autotune is like a staple of his. So it's like, I don't even know, man. I'm actually starting to get upset talking about this. So,
all right, we need a palate cleanser. We won't spend any more time on that. I've got a few funny videos, but let's just go to this one. I laughed really hard about this one.
Like many folk with moderate to severe Crohn's unholy curse, even the simplest joys in life can feel impossible. And my symptoms were keeping me,
be right back,
from where I needed to be. So I spoke with my apothecary and learned that Ratis curativa is for people with the Crohn's unholy curse. And Ratis curativa can help people achieve remission that can last. So you can experience few and no symptoms. So you can get back to doing the things you were meant to do and take back control of your life. Ratis curativa helps realign gut humors using the natural warmth of the rat warm at the neck. As that warmth flows downward, it soothes the lower humors and helps restore digestive balance. Ratis curativa may lessen your body's ability to fend off plagues, poxes, or wandering illnesses of the realm. Serious and sometimes fatal afflictions have occurred, including black bile fever, lung rot, witch's cough, confusion between your thoughts and the rat's thoughts, and unexplained bouts of scurrying. Do not begin Ratis curativa if you currently have illness, fever, or active plague. Be there for you and them. Talk to your apothecary today about Ratis curativa. With Ratis curativa, remission is possible.
Brilliant.
that was a good take on those pharmaceutical commercials. The best part, the best part of the writing of that was the dude about to be beheaded. Him looking up and being proud of him.
Yeah, that was
That's
good.
amazing.
You know, it's funny. One of my wife's coworkers, she's from England, so they don't have those kind of commercials across the pond. They're not allowed to put those kind of commercials on TV. And she's talked about how crazy it is. And it is. It's farcical, especially when you watch these commercials, because what you see is these very weird, just like the way that they present these commercials with the music. And then when they start to go like talk real fast about all the potential side effects of these things, and people are still playing at the park, they're throwing a frisbee to their dog or doing some kind of a thing. They're just walking or they're sitting in a little bath. It's weird. It's so bizarre. And you know, one interesting thing, I remember hearing Tucker Carlson talk about this one time, because, you know, he would know because he was on Fox News. And the main reason that they use those commercials is because they're not selling to people sitting on their couches. You know, they always say, ask your doctor about blah, 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 right? But people don't do that. What they really are doing when they advertise on Fox News is they're running cover for their business. Because if you think about it, if the biggest advertiser for the Super Bowl, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, you know, you name it, any kind of network, if those are the biggest sponsors, they're very likely to get negative press from the reporters at that network when they're paying them millions and millions of dollars every year. So like that's the big scam. That's why those commercials are always featured on the biggest podcasts and major news networks.
Well, ironically, or maybe unironically, they literally used the method that you were just talking about a few seconds ago, where they're drawing you in with a certain type of music.
Right.
And then on top of it, they're saying all of these things that are completely, like the things that they're saying are completely contrary to the type of music that you're hearing. Like,
Yeah.
they're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing like house party, like middle upper class house party, like or house get together vibes, while this guy's in the background telling you that it may cause permanent instant retardation the first time you take it. And it's like, wait, what is happening right now?
Every one of the side effects is 10 times worse than what this drug could supposedly help.
Dude, yeah, no, that's but like literally, like that's sorcery. Like that's what they're doing is witchcraft, like by trying to lull you with one thing and then delivering this awful, brutal message. Be like a doctor coming in and be like, well, the silver lining is we've got really good suckers on your way out, but the bad news is I'm gonna have to put you to sleep and kill you tomorrow.
Well, I mean, we told you there could be potential side effects. I mean, so like, I mean, we did tell you. I mean, that is
you
like,
signed
again,
the waiver.
It is like, this is the fine print on the big contract or your terms of service. But let's shift gears. I want to talk about a little bit more about the Met Gala, but more specifically about one particular costume in it.
There is nobody that screams MK Ultra more than Heidi Klum. And when Halloween rolls around, or there's a gathering for the lost souls, she's always transforming into something else. And while some feel like a costume or just fashion, others seem to have a message. Still can't figure this one out. At least they all got to experience it together, you know? That's probably actually her. That's Heidi. Like, that's really her. And this year, the most current, at the 2026 I Don't Care, she dressed up as a marble Medusa. And although I don't know which direction her eyes are going, I do know where the costume is. It's going towards the veiled marbled statues of the old world, which is a tradition that made stone turn into transparent cloth over a seemingly living body. The statue we just saw is called Veiled Truth, right in front of our faces, and it speaks to why Heidi's probably picking this kind of costume. This one's called Veiled Christ, all carved out of one piece. People in the 1700s were shocked when they saw these. And the tradition goes with this one that the sculptor actually used alchemy to turn that veil into stone. Okay, forget the veil for 1 second. A gentleman in the 1700s took 1 year to create a man being freed from a net. And the net is marble. And you'll notice, like all the old world structures, a lot of these were done 200, 300, 400 years ago, because hundreds of years always explains it off, right? Oh, that was done 300 years ago. Okay, cool art. Damn, she got turned into stone when she was breaking up a line to snort, didn't she? And these sculptors are very similar to the architects we talk about. This was done by a 23-year-old in the early 1600s, and he can make marble behave as soft flesh. No lie, dude, this is the sculpture. Look at the fat protruding through the middle of the fingers. A 23-year-old, it's kind of like the 23-year-olds that builds a capitol as a post office. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Maybe these petrified bodies they were finding over and over again, article after article I have, weren't hoaxes. They weren't carnival attractions. It wasn't just newspaper sensationalism. I mean, nobody writes it off when wood turns to stone. Why couldn't we? Love y'all. Isn't that weird?
Thoughts?
Oh my gosh. I mean, he kind of said it all. It's one of two things, or maybe a combination of the two. They either were literally turning humans into marble or stone. They had something that could do that in an instant, which, as crazy as it sounds, actually makes the most sense. Or there was some form of technology that they had to do that back then that we don't have access to anymore. like us low level humans. Like that's the only thing that makes any sense. But on the other topic of Heidi Klum, there's a lot of people that believe that she's just a reptilian shapeshifter and she's just showing us like different variations of who she really is each time she does these dress ups. Because dude, like if you like as you saw some of them, they're insane.
Yes. Yeah, no, that was the part I really wanted to key on at the beginning of this, is because, yeah, what's up with Heidi Klum? Because yes, this is not a new thing for her. Like, she shows up wearing the most bizarre costumes every time. And you imagine when you think about it, like when they talk about some of these people who do these movie roles and they get into the makeup to do that. This is like talking about somebody like sitting in a chair for like 8 to 10 hours to look like that. And it's just for one night, just for the pictures for that one night. It seems like there's got to be more intent with just being, I don't know, bombastic and just trying to make a scene. Because yeah, like especially this past one with that imagery of, yeah, like a famous statue about the people with the veils on. It's weird. It's totally weird. It's like, so what is she trying to say? Is it a hint about that there's more to that? Especially when they're calling it something to do with Medusa. It's like, yeah, because it really doesn't, it makes no sense to me. I don't know how people can possibly have the detailed hand to like, yeah, you're making like a layer under it. Like, you know what I mean? So like, like I said, I don't even know how you'd even begin to do that. Because you imagine like an artist just trying to draw something like that. And that won't be easy. But then you have marble. And any mistake you make, like, it can't be fixed. Any of the mistakes cannot be fixed. Unless you have to make the statue smaller. So how does the human hand do that?
I don't know, man. It's almost the only thing that we have that's available to us technologically right now that would make sense of something like that would be like the 3D resin printers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can make sculptures that have that kind of detail with a 3D resin printer, and you can buy those for your house for a couple $100. They're small, obviously, but if you scale any of that, and you change the medium, right? You change the material that's being used, you change the way that it's created. Could they have made something, because the resin that they use in those things gets rock hard, so maybe it was coated by something, but it's like, and we also can see in some of the cities like Petra and stuff like that, some of those literally look like a 3D printer etching, or like a laser printer, like the way laser cuts things out of leather, and like these, like, these are etched out of leather with a laser. It's not a laser printer, it's like a laser cutter is really what it is. So like we see different things coming out that we have access to as consumers on a micro level that could have been used in some of those cases. I'm not saying that's what did happen. I'm just saying like it adds more tools to the arsenal for us to be able to try to figure out how some of these things might have been done. But yeah, I don't know, because that's the thing too, right? It's like if those were humans, dude, I just don't know. I just don't know. Like I can speculate. I can speculate, but like that's all I can do, and my guess is as good as anyone else's.
Well, I would say that I'll add a third option. And this is one that's come up a lot, is that they maybe had the ability to soften stone. Because that would make a little more sense, that if you,
yeah,
because you could imagine if you were making something out of clay, you could fix it. Like you could say, okay, that doesn't look good, and you could kind of clump it back up, and then you could try to make it over and over again until you get the impression that you want.
And there are modern artists that use clay that do things that are like freaking phenomenal, things that I could never do. So that's a possibility also, for sure.
Yeah, because that's the way I remember when I had Matt from Cultivate Elevate on. That's what we were talking about, is the idea that something might have had some kind of a you can call it alchemy, you can call it some kind of metamorphosis of this thing where you had one material, and then somehow, either through some event or something that they knew how to do, they made something into a different material. Like you had clay, and then it somehow you changed it into marble, or they made marble soft. So I honestly, I don't know. I mean, but it's just hard. It's really hard for me to believe because we've seen no modern examples of people doing that today. Which you would have thought, knowledge being passed down, people would be able to repeat these processes, but yet we see the modern statues today, and a lot of times they're grotesque or comical, or both.
Well, are you familiar with how they cure the resin printing?
No.
So the 3D resin printers, the way they work, they're different than just like a 3D printer. The 3D resin printers, like a 3D printer starts at the bottom and prints stuff upwards, right? Like it writes it. The resin printer, it rises from this pool of resin. And so the top comes out of the bottom and it just kind of rises out of the resin. So it's like printing it from the bottom and pushing it up. But in order to cure the resin in the resin printers, you have to set it in a UV light. That hardens it. The UV light hardens it.
Interesting. Yeah, so maybe it was a process where they had some kind of a light source that changed it.
That is interesting. And again, we're talking about, light, color spectrum stuff, UV stuff that has to do with frequency, right? Visual frequency instead of audio frequency. So yeah, that is another component to all of this. So perhaps it was similar in fashion. Maybe it could have been clay, could have been a different medium that we're not aware of, and then they used some sort of specific light to harden it. We don't know what we don't know, man.
Very true. Yeah, so it could either be light or sound. Could be a combination of the two. But as we're on the topic of statues, there was a famous statue, not famous statue, maybe infamous, a new statue unveiled in Florida. Did you hear about this?
Gosh.
You hear about this, Aaron?
I think I know where this is going.
MAGA evangelical leaders blessed a golden statue of Donald Trump in Florida today.
I want to thank you all, and I won't forget it. And we love you all, and the country's doing great, and Iran is not doing good because of us. They are not doing well at all.
Now, some of you might be thinking, well, that seems blasphemous. In fact, isn't one of the 10 commandments about false idols? And you would be 100% correct. Erecting golden statues of a political leader and having it blessed by spiritual leaders is absolutely some wild work. But when you look at those spiritual leaders that were there and were involved, it all kind of starts to make sense, doesn't it? Listen, if you're a Christian and you don't speak out against this, I pray for your soul. I truly do. Christ is king.
He's not wrong, but it's this is the line? This is where y'all are drawing a line?
Well, he didn't I don't necessarily say that that's where he drew the line, but I mean, he's saying that, I mean, you cannot help but get images of the golden calf, or maybe even the statue, the idol to Nebuchadnezzar, where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were told that if you don't bow down, you're going into the fiery furnace situation.
Yeah, it's closer to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar for sure. But I mean, idol worship, period. Right? No matter whether you're taking it from one of those stories, it's, to me, it's there's been so many things that should have sparked outrage in the faith from people. And it almost feels like they're just trolling American Christianity at this point to see where people are willing to draw the line, and how someone could see all of that and still, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's, the delusion is strong, and I truly don't understand how anyone in 2026 could still be sucked into the political game in any capacity, in terms of riding hard for one side or the other.
It's the same as it ever was, though. There's nothing new under the sun. It's interesting because I've been reading in the Septuagint, I've been reading in the Book of Kingdoms, which is different, slightly different than like your typical Protestant Bible, because it goes from you have First Samuel, Second Samuel, then you have First and Second Kings. But in the Septuagint, it's First through Fourth Kingdoms. So it's basically all the same thing. So I'm reading through what you would call as I'm reading it's like Second Kings now. I'm almost at the end, and you catch a theme here is that these kings come in, and I want to say like 90, maybe 95, 99% of the kings of Israel are all bad. Judah, there's a lot more good ones, but it's probably still like 30% good maybe in Judah. But it always talks about how that, especially when the kings of Judah are not acting right, they are not following the ways of their father David, and they're doing all these horrible things. And then they're causing Judah to sin. And so when these wicked kings of Israel are following the footsteps of the first king of Israel, or the first one when the kingdom separated between Solomon's kingdom, and then you had northern Israel kind of broke away from Judah, that you had Jeroboam, I believe is pronounced, and he was evil. And so Jeroboam made the decision that he made like a strategic decision that he didn't want the people of Israel to still go worship at God's temple. So he created these two altars, and he created these two like giant, basically graven images of bulls, like in different places, because he wanted them to worship in Israel, because if they started going back to Judah to worship, then eventually that would give the king of Judah more power. But the point is, it's written straight in scripture that these kings caused the people of Israel and Judah to sin. So because people are often led by leaders, it's very obvious to most of us is that there's very few actual leaders amongst us, and there's tons of followers. So what this one guy says, fine, he's right. And you can kind of see it maybe like the way that Trump has worked is like, it's incremental at first. It's like little just itty bitty steps. Again, it's like the slowly cooking the frog. Because like when you look at where we're at right today, and of course the people who have kind of like Aaron's talking about have kind of just repelled, we've removed ourselves from this system, like spiritually and mentally, like this whole thing is such a mess. But
As
the people
best
who are
we can,
in it,
anyways.
they can't even see like the steps of how we got here. Like, because if you look back, like you imagine like in 2016 and you see like all the stuff Trump's doing now today, and people would be like, no way, nobody would have signed up for this. But yet a lot of people are saying, oh, well, do you want Kamala Harris? Oh, do you want Biden? Blah, 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 blah. Do you want a Democrat? No, we just don't want this. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is insane that this guy's got this golden statue of himself, and he's got supposedly evangelical pastors out there blessing this thing. What do you even mean to bless this statue? Like, what does that even mean? And then, of course, you looked at the other faith leaders, and it's like, that ain't our faith. That's the Judeo-Christian values. But like, those are oxymoron. That's an oxymoron. Like, those things do not fit together. I mean, it does. It gives you visions of like the golden calf. It's like, that's what he's become, or Israel's become the golden calf. But if you look at that and you don't say, like, how did we get here? Well, they talk about when people go broke. They say, how did it happen? Well, slowly at first, and then all at once. It was like, it was slow, and then all of a sudden it was just like, cliff, see ya. All the money gone.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it, right? Like, you've got the people that are like, he's chosen, and then it's like, listen, I mean, to a certain extent, everyone is chosen because God is sovereign and nothing happens without his permission. But it's like, to what end and for what purpose? And to rally behind, I don't know. I just really feel like we've talked about this before. The countless times it's mentioned that if we would repent, the nations would be spared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I really wish that people saw that as not the third option, but the first option. But that is like the other option, you know, between voting for this person, voting for this person. Like, why are we not all praying fervently, fasting and praying, and specifically, like, we should have been doing that a long time ago. We should have been doing that a long time ago, because the reality of it is, most people are in the mindset of like, we can't break the system. We can't change the system. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always been. This is the way. But I mean, listen, in my Bible, it says even greater things than these will you do. And wherever two or more agree on something in prayer, it is done. And whatever is bound on earth is bound in heaven. So like, where is that kind of faith? Like, why aren't we praying more? Like, why aren't we being so extreme with our faith and in our faith through our prayer? It's just not enough people are talking about that, and too many people are just talking about this choice or this choice.
Yeah.
And, you know, if anything, I feel like what this should be doing is this should be pushing people closer to Jesus. This should be pushing people closer to Jesus in their faith, because it is so blatant at this point. It is so obvious. And it feels like the enemy is just trolling people that claim to be Christians nowadays. I did a coaching call with one of our Echoes of Truth network clients and friends, and they're part of the coaching program that we talk about often on here. And we were talking, you know, yesterday, and I was like, there is a huge difference between a Christian and a follower of Jesus, because everybody thinks they're a Christian. Like, everybody claims to be a Christian.
Well, many
But,
are
like,
going to come to me that day, and they're going to say, Lord, Lord. And I'm going to say, I didn't know you.
exactly. And so I would just say to that, on that topic, like, if you haven't seen the writing on the wall already, it's time to stop being a Christian and start being a follower of Jesus. So,
Amen. Amen. Well, I think statues are obviously symbolic of something. Well, this is very symbolic of the idolatry that certain people have for certain cults of personality, being Trump. So like, if it can't be more in your face than him portrayed as this golden statue. But I do think it's kind of funny, just even look at the statue, because we were talking about like the cloth and the, you know, like the veil over the lady's face. And you got Trump with his protruding belly and the wrinkles in his shirt. And I was just like, I don't know. It's sort of funny that they didn't like make a statue of like a young, handsome Donald Trump. They've got like an old one who's a little bit chubby. So maybe it's a little self-deprecating, but yeah, like, but all gold too. Of course it'd be gold because it's Donald J. Trump. Whatever. Trump is something. You know what? But also what you said about how the mass delusion, the mass deception, but of course, like, people in this audience, we're thinking we're in a little season. So again, I'm not so black-pilled to say that it's got to be now. Like, this has got to be the end. So I'm always hopeful that the truth and through repentance, this deception could be stayed. This eventually final judgment could be stayed. So,
yeah.
and again, if
I agree with that.
we're wrong and we're heading toward a great tribulation, then there also is a strong delusion then. So like, this is sort of biblical. But on that topic of the little season, I made a reel and I wanted to share this here because I thought this was interesting. Again, when I go on flights across the country now, like, you know, you got nothing to do, so watch movies. So I watched the newest Spider-Man movie, and I found a pretty interesting little detail about this movie.
Yo, I think I might have found another clue that we're in Satan's little season, hidden in plain sight. Once again in the movies, Spider-Man No Way Home.
The Statue of Liberty? Good God, folks!
But before we check that out, let's talk about one of the major clues that Satan has been loose, the Statue of Liberty. Its resemblance to Apollo. Its resemblance to the statue of Lucifer. Or also this painting of Lucifer where he's summoning his hordes from hell. The Statue of Liberty has a broken chain around its ankle. Does this represent Satan's chain that was broken when he was loose for a little season? Now let's watch this clip from Spider-Man No Way Home.
Because my Aunt May taught me that everyone deserves a second chance. And that's why I'm here.
And where is here, exactly?
A place that represents second chances.
The Statue of Liberty? Good God, folks! He's about to destroy another national landmark.
Very interesting, the place that represents second chances. But second chances for what and for who? Guys, the central plot for this movie is villains from the Spider-Man multiverse come through portals and are given second chances by Spider-Man himself. Is it possibly the second chance for Satan to go out and deceive the nations and gather an army to make war against God in the camp of the saints? And it's very interesting, the symbolism with Captain America's shield showing an inverted pentagram. And what's also interesting, this movie ends with Doctor Strange casting a spell to make everyone forget that Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. What if that's symbolic of a spell cast to make everyone forget that we're living after Christ's millennial reign? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
So what do you think? Am I reaching, bro?
A lot to think about there, man. There's a lot to chew on and digest. I mean, yeah, of all of the places, it kind of reminds me of the ode that they gave in the Fantastic Four when, is it Galactus?
Yeah, Galactus.
The main guy?
Mm-hmm.
And he walks by the Statue of Liberty and kind of gives it a nod, and he's like crashing through everything, but he leaves that undisturbed, of course.
Oh, that is
and it's
interesting.
Like, yeah. I mean, he's not like intentionally destroying everything. He's just trying to walk to a certain point, but like he walks past it and just kind of looks at it. They intentionally have him like look at it and kind of like pay homage to it and then keep walking. But yeah, it's of all of the things. And then I know that the B-roll imagery showed a star, like the shield. Yeah. But in the movie itself, it's an upside down star in the shield.
I guess it's, I said inverted, but it's kind of looks sideways. I guess it's the way it's holding it. I mean, I guess the way you kind of just look at it, it doesn't look completely upright, but I mean, so obviously a 5-pointed star, if you shift it a little bit, it looks inverted.
Well, I think I told you on the Captain America, I don't remember what it was. I think they did a TV series on Captain America, or I don't know if it was one of the movies. I don't know where it was. I just know I didn't watch the whole thing because I was just like, dude, what? The very first scene, like when the new Captain America becomes Captain America, they show a shield just laying there, and the shield is turned upside down. So like they definitely have taken artistic license to use the full blown inverted pentagram. But anyways, it's like one of those things where, yeah, second chances for who, right? Like
I said, the central plot of that movie is that Spider-Man has been revealed that he's Peter Parker. And it's causing all kinds of stress for the people in his life. I mean, that's literally why Spider-Man wears a costume in the comics. Same reason the Batman does, is because he wants to be anonymous, because if people know who he is, how you can really hurt Spider-Man, actually Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman, how you can really hurt them is go after the people they love. So that's why they wear, a disguise to not let people know who they are. So he goes to Doctor Strange to get him to cast this spell about what he wants everyone to forget who he is, except for like Mary Jane, also his friend Ned, and his Aunt May. Maybe somebody else too. But through this spell, it messes up and it opens up these portals to the multiverse, and all these Spider-Man villains come through. And Spider-Man, because of his Aunt May, Marissa Tomei, she says, you can fix these people. These villains deserve a second chance. And of course, it's like his good intentions end up going bad because, hello, they're evil, right? Of course, it all works out in the end. But I mean, if you think about it, like the Abyss, is the Abyss not a portal? Everyone deserves a second chance. Does that include that old serpent, that old devil? Does he deserve a second chance? Well, I mean, it does seem like the God does give him a second chance, but I mean, it's not a second chance for redemption. It's a second chance for doing the same thing he did that got him stuck in the pit in the first place.
Isn't it crazy to think about, though? Like, because it'd be so easy for people to be like, why?
That's what I've always wondered. That I'm like, why? I mean, it is. I've come up with sort of a conclusion why. I mean, I think that because
to test our faith is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's almost like a Book of Job on steroids. Like the devil says to God, hey, if you give me a chance, I'll make everyone forget you did any of the stuff you said you were going to do. And then God says, all right, go try.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, what what would speak louder or just as loud as him going to Sheol and conquering the grave and literally conquering death than giving him the opportunity to try to wipe it all from the face of the earth and persuade everyone it never happened and convince everyone of all these lies, and people still carry that torch. People still
Like
believe.
literally with the Statue of Liberty, that torch.
Right? But people, I should rephrase, people still believing though in Christ and still believing in the death and the resurrection of Jesus after all of this time. Because we live in a day and age where it's so easy for people to not believe it. It's so easy for people to use their logic. It's so easy for people to be like, oh, well, it's been changed so many times. Like, you know, how many times do you see in the comments people saying, oh, well, I don't believe in fairy tales?
Yeah, I mean, a
It's
lot of my best reels, that's what they'll say is that they don't believe in it. But again, that's the funny part is that they do, because they usually they believe what NASA says. They believe in a lot of fairy tales.
Right.
They believe in a lot of stuff
Right.
that you have to take on faith to believe that these guys walked on the moon in 1969 and all that stuff. There's so many things that, I mean, the stories about our founding fathers sound like fairy tales to me. Like if you hear the cherry
Yeah.
tree story with George Washington, the fact that his coat got all shot up in some battle, he had 1 million holes in this coat and they didn't hit him. Like
Mhm.
that's a story they actually tell. Like that's like a story. So is that not a fairy tale? But that's history, so it's true. And then the Bible is not, because the Bible is a religious book, right?
Or George Washington was the first Avenger.
Well, you know, it's funny. You mentioned Captain America's shield, so I pulled this up. You know that shield from Captain America, that's not the original one. It's pretty old. I mean, I don't know when they started using that shield, but like this is back in the original comics. This is what it looked like. So it had 3 pentagrams on it before, and his shirt and his costume had one on there. But yeah, like he didn't always have that. He had this shield. So then they went with the one. I mean, it is sort of interesting. On the other podcast, me and Josh have been doing that deep dive into the Testament of Solomon. And it's all about Solomon having this sigil ring that is a pentagram. It's a pentalpha on this ring. And it is interesting the way that, so we have a flag for our nation now, and it's got 50 stars on it. So the stars represent each state in the Union, right? You know, back the first flag was 13 in a circle, but now we have 50. And it does kind of make you think about it like that. For one, it could be 2 things. For one, it could be like that these stars, these sigils, have some kind of a control over these spirits, and this is some kind of a witchcraft hidden in plain sight. They're putting this on our flags, and why Captain America has it on his shield. But it also could be that it's like the idea of like principalities, right? Like that these angels are actually governing over these states. And so these states are represented by these stars. Is that what they're saying? But then you take the Statue of Liberty holding this giant one. It's like, is it symbolic of this entity who is Lucifer or Apollo with this morning star? This is like who I am.
Well, what's interesting about that is the correlation also. Is it Paramount?
Yeah, Paramount has
The intro
that opening. Yeah, it definitely looks like, it looks like a representation of Mount Hermon and all of the Watchers descending down at the top to make
the
this
stars
pact
are all coming.
that they're
Yes.
going to sin with the women.
So they're all coming down from the heavens, and they, correct me if I'm wrong, they form a circle around the mountain.
Yeah, they spin around the thing. Yep.
So, yeah.
You guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this. I'm repeating something I've heard. Somebody said there's 22 of them, and it represents each one of the names for the angels, the Watchers that are listed in the Book of Enoch. There's the same amount of stars as there's names for the Watchers in the Book of Enoch.
That's sounds like that's a new reel for you.
I wouldn't be the first person to say that. I have to do the homework to make sure that's absolutely true. But
Yeah.
either way, it still
I'd be
makes sense
interested.
that when you see the way the stars come down and then they settle over a mountain, and as we talked last week about how that these mountains were often said in these mythologies and these religions it's the places where the heavens meet the earth. And so this is the abode of certain gods. So just in itself, it's like regardless if they match up perfectly with the Book of Enoch, that's like a thing. Like that's not something I made up. That's a real thing. Even like when you get
Yeah.
into like the idea of like Hollywood Walk of Fame and everybody gets a star. You know, even your kids, they go to school and it's like, oh, you did good. You get a gold star. Why a star?
And everyone wanting to be a movie star, a rock star. It's all.
And LA
it's
is
all,
the city of angels. So yeah, I mean, and I'm not one of these people who think every one of these people who does a movie is a fallen angel. Because I know some people say that. I think some of them are just regular people, but I do believe that, yeah, they could be amongst us. I mean, I think some of them are, but I don't think that most angels would do that because probably it would be beneath them to pretend to be human.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I don't think there's that many of them.
Well, we know that a third of the angels fall. Now, obviously, if you look up at the stars, if you think about like, let's just say we're in Little Caesar, there's still a lot up there. So a third of them, like you could imagine there was more, there's a third more, and then they came down. Now, the truth is, I don't know this because the Bible doesn't explicitly say this. Like the devil is bound. What happens to all the other fallen? Were they thrown into the lake of fire? I mean, it really only says after the battle of Armageddon is the beast and the false prophet were thrown into the lake of fire. So
Right.
what
So
about all the
other?
What about all the other angels who are bad?
It would make sense that they're amongst us. That would absolutely make sense.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's guess is as good as mine about that. I mean, I don't think everybody's a fallen angel. I think that would be too. That's stupid. That's stupid, for lack of a better term, because that I think that kind of mindset, and we've talked about this. I want to say that we talked about this on the Afterglow, is that to attribute every bad act by humanity to a fallen angel or a demon is like you're taking agency away from people to make bad decisions. It's like when you made a bad decision, you're like, oh, a demon caused me to do that. It's like, no, your flesh caused you to do that. Now, you might have been influenced, but it's kind of the same way that when Adam and Eve were tempted by the serpent in the garden, it didn't get them off the hook for doing something that was affront to God, to disobeying God. Like God still held them accountable. So they knew better and they still did it anyways. And I don't think that's a situation where, the thing is, it's kind of like if you were possessed by a demon and you did something evil, you're still accountable because you got possessed by that demon by some kind of consent before that.
Totally. Yeah, no, totally. Whether through, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think it's also on that note, it's so important to not give, because it's so easy in this day and age to lose heart or to give up because it feels like the presence of evil and the demonic is so powerful and it's so present and and that is true. Like in terms of, well, the part of it that's true is, yes, like everywhere you turn, radio, TV, the way people dress, society, all of these different things, like that is absolutely true. But here's a really cool thought though, and not enough people say this. It's like, not only did Jesus conquer the grave, not only do we know the battle's already been won, but by simple math and deduction, we know that the heavenly, like the kingdom of God has the fallen angels outnumbered 2-1.
Right. Correct.
Based on simple math. So it's like, not only did he conquer the grave and already win everything, but like the worst of the worst that exists in all of existence is also outnumbered 2-1.
And also,
with righteous
the
angels.
Archangel Michael cast that old serpent down. So we're not looking at him as being the most powerful angel. It's like the Bible tells us that Michael and his angels threw those old wicked angels down.
Yeah.
Not by their own power, but by the might of the Lord is that they did this. So, yeah, we should not be fretful about that idea. But
I agree.
I want to go back to the show Foundation because I just thought about this. That we've been talking about this again, like maybe like the power of the angels and maybe their perception of the fourth dimension. Is it they can see more of the picture? They can't see all because they're not all-knowing. They're not omnipotent like our Lord, the Most High God, but they can see part of the picture. And I started to think about that. So the show Foundation, the main kind of theme of this movie is that this one guy invents this thing called psychohistory, and he creates this weird kind of, I want to say it looks like the Metatron cube, probably almost very clearly. Maybe it's exactly like what it is. And all his math is visualized through almost like stardust, and it makes this kind of holographic image. And so this is showing all like the branches of time and the different possibilities of all the things that can happen. I started to think about that as like the fact that it does resemble the Metatron cube is like, is that kind of similar to like what the angels do? No, it's like that they see all the other possibilities and then they look like prophets because, again, they have their own prophets that are prophesying certain things, but they know there's certain possibilities. But again, they can't predict everything. And then there's also anomalies in this math that don't really fit into this process, and they can't really account for that. Do you think it is something like that? I mean, is that kind of what they're showing you in that movie or in that show?
Yeah, and it's also like the Tesseract in the Avengers, right? And in the Marvel movies, it's like that cube.
Yeah, but this is more
called,
like
what is it called?
This looks more like the Metatron cube because you can see even like all the other geometry in it.
Right. They call it the Prime Radiant, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called?
Yes.
But no, you're right. Like the interesting thing about that is that as much as it can predict, because it's using algorithms and math and, data based on like variables of all of the information that it has, it still gets things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It still gets things wrong. It still miscalculates things. Like you said, there's anomalies. There's other things that take place in it all. And it's like, yeah, I think that is the perfect example of how the demonic sees things. It's like, yeah, they've got all the technology. We've talked about this before. You can't tell me that quantum computing doesn't come from the fallen. Like you can't tell me that, dude. It literally is like an upside down Tower of Babel that has to be kept in subarctic conditions. But like obviously there's technology and understanding on levels that we can't possibly understand. So they're outside of time in a sense, but also not. And I don't fully understand it all yet, but like, yeah, obviously like so the way that I see it, no pun intended, is that like in the same way that we can only see 0.5% of the visible light spectrum, they can only see a certain percentage of the fourth dimension. Like they can only see a certain aspect. Like there's obviously certain things that they don't have access to and that they can't see, like for our own safety. Right.
Yeah, they're
and because
maybe they're more
rules.
like Demerzel. Is that how you say your name? So in the
Yeah.
show, Demerzel is this robot who was they killed all the robots in this war, and one was left over. And we've often talked about that, the idea of almost like the Transformers. It's like these things they're human, but they're really not. So she's like, I mean, in the show, I think she's like thousands and thousands of years old. I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but she's very cold. She's obviously very powerful, and she's not human. So, but she's understanding this thing, and of course, when she gets the Prime Radiant, then she's kind of directing things. But it is kind of funny, like in the irony of the show, it's like that they knew these things, but they might have made things worse by like trying to prevent what was coming all along.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe that's part of the maybe that's kind of like the whole story is like that. The story's written, like we got God's word, like what's been written, it will happen. And so they're looking for this disaster that leads to these dark ages. And what they've tried to prevent it ends up making things worse and ends up being like an existential threat to like basically wipe everything out. It does feel like maybe that's what they're showing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I never really thought about that parallel though between her and like in our world,
even her
like
last name, like, remember Demerzel, so it's like her last EL.
Exactly. It's got the EL. So like the same is like the Fallen and the Nephilim, because did you finish the third season?
No, I haven't. I got 4 episodes left.
Okay. So I don't want to like ruin anything for you, but like I think by now that like there is a whole sect of people that worship those robots. And they're all, yeah. And they're all like well-versed in the ancient practices. Like there's like a whole like subsect of these people. And what's crazy is those people that worship them are buried in society. They don't tell people that they're worshipers of that.
Yeah, that's a really good clue. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, as I'm reading through the Book of Kingdoms, and it's talking about how these wicked kings in Israel and Judah, they worship the whole heavenly host. So the heavenly host being they're worshiping angels. They set up altars to them. Yeah, and they're like, and they had relics to these ancient machines. It is sort of interesting to think about that, like whether this robot that's left over is this holdover. It was said that they were all wiped out, so nobody really knows about her except for Empire, and eventually people learn a little bit toward the end of the show. But yeah, it would almost be like that there was a time when the angels walked amongst us, and that time passed, and so they're all gone, and everyone thinks they're all gone except there's one. See, that makes more sense to me than the fallen angels are moonlighting as Hollywood actors all the time. There's like one. There's like one who's out there, and he's the guy behind the people. And of course, it's also interesting because I often talked about this as the Statue of Liberty is this kind of inversion. It's kind of like that if it's Lucifer or it's Apollo, it's like it's got a masculine face, but it's a woman. So just like Demerzel is...
Dude, I'm connecting so many dots right now.
Yeah, it's just like Demerzel is not really a woman. She appears to be a woman because somebody wanted her to look like that. But she's neither female nor male.
And she quite literally is directing and controlling 3 emperors. Day, dawn, and dusk. Dude, that's crazy. That parallel is insane.
Yeah, it's like it checks a lot of boxes, and of course we'll skip that. We'll move on because I know a lot of people haven't seen that show, but I'll just say that show it's complex. It's very interesting. As far as shows go, it's not overly gratuitous or anything like that. So I would say it's a show you could watch. Maybe not with your kids, but like it's not so horrible. Maybe because the bar's set so low. So if you guys check that show out, I'd like to get your thoughts.
The production value is high on it.
No,
sure.
it's certainly interesting. This is a topic that I didn't hit last week, but a lot of people were talking about this, and this is important. As we talk about technology and the dangers of it, I would say this is probably one of the clearest examples of like where we're headed or where we're already here.
Come on! No! Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an accident, something terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck, but the truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift because it detects my eyes are big, there's a lot of emotion, there's some panic, and it doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction, that is happening because Ford just filed the patents. Ford actually has a series of patents down at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office that deal with the sensors and cameras inside the cab of their truck. And if the sensors in that truck determine that you're not fit to drive, that truck will not actually shift from park to drive. Now they already have a system called telematics, and that's where they can actually pull up cameras in real time inside the cab of their fleet vehicles. Now, they actually market this to insurance companies because the truth is, this is really about who owns the data and who owns the liability. Now, your name might actually be on the title of this truck, and you may have paid for it, but you don't own it. Now, Ford didn't file just one patent. They filed a stack of them, all within months of each other. Are you sitting down? Get this. This Ford technology patent doesn't just watch you, this one puts you in jail. Ford filed a patent, serial number 0104469, where the system takes your biometric data, your face, your iris, and your fingerprint, and it runs it through a criminal database in real time. While you're sitting in your own truck, think about what that means. You wake up one morning. You walk out to your driveway, you climb into a vehicle with your name on the title, on property with your name on the deed. And before you go anywhere, before you've done a single thing wrong, your truck is already running your face through a law enforcement database. Ford's own patent language describes this as potentially useful for police. They wrote that. Ford wrote that into the patent application. So the question isn't whether this technology can be abused. Ford already told you who it's for. You just didn't know that you were buying a cop car.
What do you think about that, Aaron? That is frightening.
The only thing that I'm thinking is, at what point in time do we all stand up and say no? At what point in time?
That time might have passed, I think, unfortunately.
No, I agree. So like the time for us to stand up and have a revolution and fight back is like 35 years ago. Like I agree with that. Like
it's interesting. We talked about this before about the cash for clunkers thing. That might have been like, but nobody really. I mean, I won't say nobody knew, but like we didn't know that. We thought this was a dumb stimulus idea, but we didn't realize why they were junking cars and trucks that were actually could be fixed and could be cheaper and wouldn't have all this technology in them that were supposedly about the environment and emissions and all this stuff. They were about putting computers in the vehicles like OnStar, and then obviously that was just the start of the stuff that would be the stuff that's in these Fords today.
But the way that they're easing everyone into it, the way that they've eased everyone into all of this stuff, it's the kind of thing where it's like, so perfect example. How many people's livelihood depends on us having internet? How many, like
this guy right here, for sure.
As we film a podcast, like how many people's livelihood depends on us having internet, even if it's local, right? Like we use the tools to help us manage things, to do things. So like they've already got so many people ensnared in their network and in their system of having to use these things. So they roll something out like that. Most people, including believers, are just going to be like, okay, well, go ahead and do what you got to do. And they're going to say, well, I've got nothing to hide. And then they're going to say, I have to do what I have to meet my appointments. I've got to go to my places. I got to get my kids to school. Like I got to do all these things. I have to. They're not thinking of any other option. But like, I want to really encourage everyone. The time to make extreme decisions is right now. I mean, I'm being so serious. Like the time to, like, it might even be too late. But I'm not going to speak that over everyone. I would like to believe that it's not too late. But pulling all your money out and buying land and going and building something where you can live,
get you a classic vehicle and learn how to work on it yourself.
Dude, the time to make extreme like I still think there's time to make some extreme decisions like that, because agreeing to allow them to do that, dude, I don't think I can do that. I'm just being honest. Like, I don't know what that means, but I don't think I can agree to that. And it's one of those things also where it's like, you know, with even the very elect being deceived, by the time they roll out whatever it is that will be, and listen, again, whether we're in the short season or not, even if they've already done the mark before, they're recreating everything. So they're going to come out with something that is going to be the equivalent of the mark, whether it's already happened or whether it's, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like
they're coming out with that.
I always think that the Bible shows us there is a typology and there's like the shadows of the thing that are to come. That's why we say like that the signs we're looking for a potential gathering of this army to fight against the camp of the saints might really resemble what it looked like before the tribulation. Of course, it actually probably look way different because of the times we're living in versus the times of the first century. But at the same time, like the whole idea is basically the same in a more modern version of it.
But they've got everyone by the cojones right now. And the reality of it is most people aren't in a place where if they were to cut everyone off electronically from their money and say, we literally are not going to let you pay your bills unless you agree to this thing. I'm not trying to be that guy, but like, I really want people to think of right now what that means for you and your family.
Yeah, that's freaking
Well, I have to
scary.
do this.
That's freaking scary.
I have to do this because we've got our mortgage, we've got our investment properties, we've got our cars, we've got our dues to pay, we've got private school, we've got, man, if you don't have some sort of game plan or strategy, or you're not at a point where you can say, screw it all, like I'm grabbing what I got and I'm heading north, or I'm going, and people are going to laugh at that. But dude, if you're not thinking like that and you don't have a game plan and you have no exit strategy whatsoever, it's terrifying. Like, it's terrifying. And that's where the extreme faith is going to come into play. But I do feel like if you've got the means to buy some land and start working on something where you can go, everyone needs to do that.
No, I absolutely agree. And on the theme of being kind of scary, we're going to stay on that theme for one more second, for one more video. Because I know a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not getting a Ford. It's funny because I've always kind of, my family's kind of been a Ford family. I've always had Fords. And again, it's not necessarily like just isolated to Ford. I mean, like that's where this patent is in. But we know that, again, like OnStar on all the GMC vehicles, General Motors, Chevy and Dodge and all that stuff, that they've had the ability to shut off vehicles for like forever. I don't know. I mean, for like a long time. But a lot of people are saying, well, I'm not going to get a Ford, so I don't have to worry about this. I am going to get an old beater and I'm going to fix it up, and it's not going to have any computer parts. It's going to have no CD player, even, you know, the CD player, I'm dating myself, any kind of a radio or anything. Well, check this out, if that's your thought.
So see that one? That's a security cam. That right there is a flock cam.
Fully support the use of flock cameras. I think it'll not reduce crime.
The flock cam is AI, photographing and remembering. It will take pictures and videos of your vehicle, right? And it'll log you at this time, at this place, blah, 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 blah. The flock cam goes to a private company. I think it's 90,000 nationwide and 9,000 a DFW. Those little guys watch you and tag you everywhere you go. So it just tagged me now. And even though I don't have a license plate, it's still going to put me down in memory in this spot. So now when I go over to the next cameras, which we're going to go a little ways in, those cameras will ping me as well. And then this private company is going to know I was here and went to there and was pointing at their cameras. Flock safety, 24/7 recording. So see, they're getting you when you come in, they're getting you when you leave. Also, the website that we're using just to look up the cameras, the owner of these cameras, the dude that owns the company, he tried to say that it was terrorism. That us knowing where these cameras are on a website is terrorism.
And then unfortunately there's terroristic organizations like DFLOC, whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else.
On what planet is us knowing where these companies' cameras are that are logging our everyday life, does this guy get to say that us knowing where this camera is, like I just found it because of the map, how's it terrorism for me to know where this camera is? That just seems sus, right?
Calling that terrorism is crazy word.
Yeah. You know, you see the language too. So I think this is, I mean, the way that he said that, I'm like reading past what he said, because this seems like this guy's like a Trumper, right? You know, because like you would think that like this would be your big brother Democrat type idea, but you see how Trump has got in bed with Palantir, Peter Thiel, what's his name from Larry Ellison, a lot of the big tech companies. Like, so this kind of AI surveillance state is like something that the Republicans are working on. It's Republicans and Democrats. But the thing that kind of triggered me what he said was these people are more like Antifa. So like that language is like Antifa is a leftist group. So they want anarchy and chaos. No, we just want you to leave us alone. Like, we don't want to be photographed when we're not doing anything wrong. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, you have security systems at your bank because bank's got your money in it, so you want security there. It's another thing that you have a neighborhood watch. We don't want these private companies. We don't have any clue what they're doing with that kind of stuff. I mean, the thing is like it's frightening on so many different levels, is that they're going to say, oh, well, your government's not doing, it's private companies doing it. But like the governments have to allow these private companies to do this. And what are these people doing with all the data? And I've heard this, and I'm not sure if this is actually true, but I've heard people have hacked into these cameras and they can watch people like in real time. You imagine just some crazy deranged stalker having access to this camera, and he's like, okay, he thinks this chick is kind of cute, and he can follow every movement this person makes. That's scary, man. That whole thing is frightening.
I'm not trying to terrify people, but the reality of it is, if you have a camera connected to the internet, period, and it's always on, or it's constantly going off, it doesn't take a super advanced hacker to hack in and look at anything that's connected to the web. Literally anything.
Well, but you think about it, but this gives people ideas who to target too, though, because it's kind of like, in theory, yes, you could target anybody, but they don't know who they even want to target until they can maybe use these flock cameras to say, like, why you have interest in this person.
Yeah.
But what you were just saying, it's funny. We just, on the last Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast, we did a live stream, and I should have, I don't know. Like, sometimes I have to decide where I want to show these videos, but I decided to play it because I saw it that morning. Was this one guy was talking about TVs. And I thought this was really interesting because I was saying every bit examples of like the things we have to buy in this world seem like they're getting more and more expensive. There's very few examples of things that are getting cheaper. Like even our phones. Like, so why is this smartphone that I have now more expensive like than the first iPhone? Because technology, as it continues to get better, a lot of these things should be able to be made cheaper. Like my first TV, the very first TV I ever bought, first flat screen TV I bought, or like plasma TV, it was $2,500. It was a 42-inch and had no speakers. You couldn't even listen to it. It was basically just a monitor. And now you can go buy at Walmart today. This guy was showing you that you can buy a 50-inch Vizio for $178. But what
4K.
this thing had in it was that before you could even use the TV, you had to I think you had to like register some kind of a thing with Vizio. But now Walmart owns Vizio, so you're actually registering with Walmart. And so it made sense to me. I made the connection of like, when Alexa first came out, right? They were really expensive when they first came out, but before you know it, they chopped the price down real cheap. And then I think it was like one Christmas, they were like giving them away. So why would they give them away? Because it's a little spy in your house.
Yeah.
So to me, it makes sense that your TV is potentially spying on you.
I think it's safe for people to assume that all of your electronic devices are spying on you. Everything with a microphone, everything with a speaker. There are things that have microphones that you wouldn't even think have microphones, that shouldn't have microphones. I ordered this off the TikTok shop, I don't know, like a couple years ago. I ordered this like square thing that like it shows graphics in like old school like 8-bit and 16-bit, right? Like the little pixels, like it's like pixelated graphics. It was like $15 or something. I looked on the back and there was like a speaker. I ended up like taking it apart. There was a microphone in it. This thing was $15. There's a microphone in it. Why is there a microphone in it? And like you connect this thing and like you connect it to your Bluetooth. You can also connect it to your Wi-Fi so that you can update it with images and different things. So it's like, it's at the point now where everyone's trying to collect your data. There are patents that show you, and you can look these up. There are patents that show you that like the monitors that you use, the screens that you use, the pixels, the more pixels they've got, they're looking back at you. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that everything is collecting data on you. Everything is listening. Everything's being aggregated in one system, in one central place. And there's a point in case with that. I mean, there's a lot of point in cases, but there's a guy that was recently, I saw a video and his Alexa said something to him. He said something about being tired. Like, I don't listen, I'm not judging anyone. I don't know why you would just have casual conversations with your AI or your Alexa or anything like that. But
wasn't it Richard Dawkins has like renamed his Alexa and he was starting to have some relationship with it?
I don't know, dude. But
Famous Atheist is like, he's a simp for his Alexa, I think, at this point. No, it was like his AI, like literally he was naming his AI Darlene or something like that. It's like that straight out of that movie with
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, Her.
Yeah. No, we're in that place now, and there's a
what a
lot of lonely,
chump.
hurting people. But this guy somehow he said something about being tired, and his Alexa came back to him and said, "Oh yeah, being in nursing school or being in medical school, blah blah blah." He never said anything about being in medical school. He never mentioned that. He never discussed that. That was never a part of his conversation. He never talked about that around it. And then like he was trying to get it to admit that it said it and why it said it, and it was like trying to call. These videos are out there. He's trying, like Alexa was trying to like calm him down, and it was like, oh well, there is certain data that we collect or that we have on people, to help us give them a better experience and to understand them better, and this and that, basically alluding to like there's secret information. Exactly. And he kind of goes through these questions and asks Alexa. It never really reveals the sources or says why. But I just want to say this, and none of these things should shock anybody. Literally at the inauguration, in front of his family and in front of his cabinet, he had standing all of the pillars of the tech community. They were all standing front and center. Like he was showing us even then, like he was like parading them on stage. And I remember watching that and being like, dude, this is a bad omen, man. Like this is a very bad sign. He's literally showing us the importance of these people. They're in front of his family. They're in front of his cabinet. They're in front of all of these people. And they're standing there so proud with their chests puffed out. And to me, that was like so explanatory of where he was planning on going, and now where we currently are. Like it's very obvious. Like the whole intention the whole time was to give authority over to the tech giants and allow them to start taking control of everything. That's what we're watching that happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is a situation. Again, I think it's interesting to think about like those movies like The Matrix and Terminator. So we see those movies portray like the tech turning on us and like literally killing people. That could happen. But it could just be an allegory of just that we have just given over our whole lives and everything to people who control the machines. And therefore the result is basically the same. And yeah, you're right. It should not be surprising that we're getting to the place we're at, because all the signs were out there that this was the intention of these things all along. But don't you agree with me that there's no real reason why a phone costs way more than a TV now? Right? Like why would you, again, go backwards? It's like, why are the phones cost more than the TVs? So the same, what you can get for like a TV that costs as much as this Samsung S25, go like, what I'm saying? You could get like you could probably get 100-inch TV now for the same price as this phone.
Well, one of the main reasons why they charge so much for the phones is because they know you'll pay it. They know everyone has to have their phone on them at all times.
But the truth is like, if the TVs remain how much they cost when we first got them, we bought them then, right? If that's what the cost is. I mean, again, everything else, if the price of bread and milk and gasoline and all that stuff goes up, don't you think the parts in the TV costs more too? But for some reason,
yeah,
I guarantee. I mean, I would bet they're losing money on selling TVs for $178.
Yeah, they just want everyone to have one.
Right, exactly.
They want to have
my point
monitors in people's homes.
They want you to have it, and the real question you have to ask yourself is, why? It's not good. I guarantee you that. Okay, I want to shift gears. I've got a funny one. I've got a palate cleanser because that was a lot of scary stuff. We often talk about the great art of the old world, but we often don't talk about maybe the examples that are not so great.
So cute! So cute!
Those animals looked crazy, dude.
Yeah, the examples, those the bird and the dog. Yeah, there's a lot of paintings. I remember as a kid, I kind of, I would probably be the kind of person who'd be like staring at that, being like, That's really weird. Like, why would they draw that dog with a face like that?
Well, what's weird about it is the fact that, like, you could tell they weren't a bad artist. Like, they
No.
made it like that on purpose, so they were probably just tripping. They were probably just totally tripping and staring at a dog, and the dog at the moment was scaring them or something. Like, because like they articulated a very specific looking dog very well. They just made it look really weird.
Yeah,
That's so
very
weird.
sus. Yeah, I mean, if you go all the way back to ancient Egypt, and I believe that these statues were probably antediluvian, the symmetry of the statues of those Egyptian pharaohs, they're like perfect. They literally look like they were like 3D printer cut with a laser that just define it, where they say you take one side of the face and you go to the other side, it is exactly the same. So like their proportions are correct anatomically. So if you're going back to those days and they could do it right, why does a dog look like that? Supposedly, like, I guess probably the Middle Ages or whatever, whenever they did that, or it's almost like that, like the one dog was like a lion. It kind of had like a human expression on its face. I think I think you're right. I think there's some kind of intent when they're doing that. Now, what's the intent with that? I don't know, but it's still funny.
Well, there's an era of paintings also where I want to say like the 1400s, 1500s maybe. But there is like for a time, almost all of the cats are depicted as like little lions. They look like lions. They literally look like lions. And so it's like, are they lions?
I think
And
my
they're
cats
depicting
think
a
that they
giant
are.
person?
I think my cats think that they're lions. When they're walking across the yard, they walk,
Right.
they move like they're like a tiger.
That's wild.
They
Well,
like
whoever painted these
the
pictures
way they
obviously sees-
articulate their shoulders and stuff, and they walk like they're about
Right.
to go tackle a gazelle.
They know something that everybody else doesn't.
They definitely do. They definitely act arrogant like that. You know, speaking of art, this is really weird. This is a weird subject, but we're going here. Just check this out. This interesting children's book. Very bizarre.
In light of everything that is going on right now, I'm not feeling this. Okay, so there's a bunch of children around. He says, I do not eat children. I would never eat a child. What do you think I am? A monster? Wait, are you suggesting that I do eat children? Well, maybe it is you who eats children. Not me. I love children. Look what's in the burp. Items belonging to children. Oh, pardon me. Now, what was I saying? Oh, yes. And all these kids are missing now. I do not eat children. And she says, I do eat liars. But also, what is this?
Dude, so disturbing. That's so disturbing.
Right?
Like, how does that get published and end up in like kids, like libraries and like bookstores and
Yeah, especially when you think about the Steen files and they talk about eating kids in that thing.
dude, that's so disturbing. Well, and like the correlation too between that and like how much is in, like how much they reveal in modern society, like how much they show. Like, have you seen that brass statue in New York?
You know what? It's funny. Hold that thought because I was going to play that video next. Because I was thinking what was interesting about the cover of that book. What was it called? Was the book called Don't Eat Children?
Or I Do Not.
Yeah, or I Do
something
Not
like
Eat
that.
Children, whatever it was called. You get the idea. But it was an alligator on the cover, right? So like that wasn't the monster that was in the book. Like why wasn't it an alligator in the book?
Right. Good question.
That's weird. I mean, that's weird. The whole point is that maybe it wouldn't seem as dark if it was an alligator. Maybe that's just me. Because we do know that alligators eat kids, but what is this monster deal with the 666 on its chest?
Right.
That's something entirely
Right.
different. But yeah, I'll let you
and horns.
Yeah, I'll let you riff after this.
They put it right in your face. This statue in New York, a reptile pulling a child underground. I really wish I could elaborate on this without getting in trouble, but I mean, I'm sure some of you, I hope, can connect the dots of what I'm saying here. They have a statue in New York of a reptile, an alligator, pulling what looks like a child underground into a sewer. Why? Why? What is the reason? Tell me.
So here's something that I recently thought about, which is pretty crazy. And some people might have already connected these dots. So you remember the Ninja Turtles, who also lived in the New York sewers.
And they like pizza.
And they loved pizza. But they were the good guys, of course. But here's one that a lot of people haven't put together. What, dude, all of the bad guys in the Mario Brothers games, like Bowser and all of his children, they all have turtle shells.
Yeah, Koopas. Yeah, Brian's out here to talk about that.
And the Koopa Troopas?
There was the Kappa, is some kind of ancient demon thing from the Far East or whatever, and it had like a little tiny hat.
And they're plumbers?
Mm-hmm.
Mario and Luigi?
Yeah, they go in the sewers.
So it's like, right. So it's like, dude, that can't all be a coincidence. It's like they've been trying to tell us this whole time, or just mocking us and putting it directly in our faces. And to the extent that it's like, what are you guys even going to do about it? Like, this is just what we do. This is the way we live. This is the world that you live in. And this is a perfect point in case of how one can spiral out on all of these things and all of these facts and go down so many different rabbit holes, which, again, if you ask me, every single one of those rabbit holes, if you truly chase it to the very end, you find Jesus. Because before you find Jesus, you find the opposite, and you find like pure darkness. And that's really what's at the end of these. But then you find Jesus as a result, right? And it's like, it's so much more terrifying of a world than most people can comprehend. And this is one of the reasons why he tells us to have that childlike faith, because it's good to know all of this information, but on the same hand, it's like, what do you do with it all, right? Like, what do you do with all of this intel? Because when you truly understand the way that it all works, I got to a point where it's like, I wish I didn't, honestly. Like, I wish that I didn't. I had to unlearn some stuff, because you literally can learn too much. You can go too far. And I had to like pray for him to remove some of this stuff from my brain, because I want to remain childlike. I want to continue to depend on him. I want to rest in his promises and to rest in the promise of no weapon formed against me, and just understanding my authority. And it was really hard, even though I found him at the end of every one of the rabbit holes, it was really hard to like find that place of closeness and intimacy with him where I could fully rest in those promises. Because when you go down those rabbit holes and learn that kind of stuff, it's so it's so troubling mentally that your brain has to try to make sense of it. But it's like the more you learn, the less it makes sense, and the more the Bible makes sense. The less it makes like logical human sense, and the more everything in the Bible makes sense, and the more you realize like, okay, like this is why he tells us to have that childlike faith and to stay in that place with him.
Yeah, but
Because,
you know
like,
what? So again, I quoted this earlier in this podcast. I quoted it last week too. Is when Jesus sends them out into the world, sends the apostles out. He says, "I'm sending you out amongst the wolves. So be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves." So he's telling you to be as wise as your enemy, because your enemy is wise. And it's interesting that the enemy happens to be reptilian. Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's interesting. And you know what? I got one more video after this, and this will probably, the conversation might veer into the uncensored version. I'm not exactly sure. It's funny we don't have as much uncensored stuff when Brian's not on here. But no, the book that that book that I showed first was called "Do Not Eat Your Neighbors." So it wasn't just, but it was about the monster eating children though. So that's weird, and it was alligators doing it. Yeah. So here's the last video, and yeah, this video will probably be okay for YouTube, but the commentary might not be. So this is about a lot of, like, cruise ships are in the news today, right? A lot of things about cruise ships because we have the Santa virus that's out there and everybody's freaking out about it. And supposedly all these people got quarantined on this ship. But there was actually another cruise ship or cruise ships that you might not have heard about. Check this out.
If you thought a cruise ship infested with hantavirus was crazy, then you're going to want to listen to this, because law enforcement just arrested 28 crew members, including from a Disney cruise ship, after uncovering a massive child pornography ring. So they went on 8 cruise ships off the coast of San Diego in late April, part of a child exploitation material operation. They interviewed 26 crew members from the Philippines, 1 from Indonesia, 1 from Portugal, and 27 of them were involved in either the receipt, possession, transportation, or distribution of this material. The arrests were made over 5 different cruise ships, so it wasn't just Disney, but Disney did release a statement. You can pause and read it here. It's just your typical PR stuff. They ended up revoking all of their visas, and they sent them all back to their own country. But the fact that this is over 5 different cruises makes it a lot worse in my opinion, because it makes me want to believe that this is something that's large scale. Like, what else is out there? It's just a bunch of families on cruises. If you've ever been on one, they're just trying to have a good time with their family, and there's a lot of kids roaming around on cruise ships. And if people are taking advantage of that in the worst way possible, I can't think of anything worse than that.
Did you hear about that, Aaron?
I saw, like, I heard that one of the theories is that the virus isn't really a thing and that it's all smoke and mirrors because they're trying to cover up for that happening. But it's like, you never really fully know, right? And it's like, if they're telling us that, what are they not telling us? Like, what else was going on? Who else was involved? And I never heard all those details. Like, why 5 cruise lines? And why cruise lines in general? Like, what? Like, there's so many, like, that leaves me with so many more questions than it does answers.
Do you think it has anything to do with maritime law? I know a lot of people talk about us being under maritime law. Is that, it was funny, I just talked about this on Brian's live stream last week, is that there was just a thing, like, almost like, it's like a phenomenon on Netflix where they had multiple, shows about these disastrous cruise ships with, like, the poop cruise and everything. And of course, I'm watching this, and I'm like, I'm never going on a cruise. I've never been on one. I don't want to go on one. But the truth is, you're kind of at the mercy of the captain when you're on the cruise ship, because he's basically like the king. Like, you go into international waters, it's like, well, who's really in charge? Like,
Yeah.
who's keeping your rights, your sovereign rights as an American? Well, nobody, because you're under a different kind of a statute and rules when you're on a cruise line. But yeah, the idea that it's Disney, and then you have all the CP all over this that are connected to the people who are in charge, right? Again, like, you're talking about, like, maybe it's really not that much different than when you're actually in the United States, because the ruling class is a bunch of creeps and weirdos, and potentially monsters or reptilians.
Yeah, it just, like I said, it adds so many more questions though, because that guy said 5 and only one of them was Disney. So what's the significance between them finding that and there being 5 ships involved? Like, it feels to me like there had to have been something else going on. Like, were they going somewhere? Were they going to an island? Where did this material come from? Were they filming it on the ships? Were they going somewhere and they were taking people to a certain place? Like, were they all visiting similar places in one of the excursions that weren't listed on the boat documents for the high class clientele was to go participate in these lewd events? Like, there's so much more to the story that they're not telling us. It just seems really weird.
Yeah, you know what? So there was the poop cruise. Like, it was called like Trainwreck something. Like, they had a series on Netflix, and they talked about the poop cruise where they had all kinds of fecal matter and things getting backed up in their bathrooms, and they weren't able to dock. Like, they were supposed to go on a short cruise, and then they were prevented. I think the ship stalled out and they lost power, so that controlled their laboratories, so they couldn't. It was disgusting. But then there was another one about this story, and I guess I wasn't paying attention to kind of that kind of Dateline and Inside Edition and all that those kind of shows. There was this woman who went missing off one of these cruise liners. And so there's a big story about that. And, there's all kinds of speculation about it. If she was abducted, or if she willingly got off and she left, or if she unalived herself. But I guess that's the thing. It's like that when you do go into international waters, or you visit places in these islands that maybe not be safe, well, maybe a few people go missing. The idea of child trafficking, sex trafficking, all that kind of stuff. Like, maybe that's a place that could be dangerous. Because again, if you can't trust the people who are like in charge, because like you don't know who the people are in charge, it almost makes me think of like the crews of these ships. And I'm just saying, is this like pirates? Like who are the people? It's kind of almost like carnies. Like, who are the people who dedicate their lives to be on these ships all the time? But we have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, but it is an odd profession, right? Like, it's not something that lots of people would do, because it's not again, it's not a typical thing, because you're always moving around, and maybe it's a situation where, are they getting the best and the brightest to be on these ships? Probably not.
Yeah, there's so many questions. My main one is like, what's the correlation between all 5 of them? They probably all had this similar stops, or they probably were all going to similar places. And I don't know, I almost don't want to know, but the correlation between that happening and then that virus, being exposed at the same time is very interesting. Now, the maritime law conversation, that's something we could probably have a 2-hour podcast about alone, because my understanding is that all of us are under maritime law.
That's what I've heard. I've not ever done a deep dive into that, but we probably should do that.
It's fascinating, dude. The verbiage, Brian probably would have a heyday with that, because of the verbiage that's used in a lot of common things, especially when it comes to law. And it comes to the way that they talk about things, and the way. Now, for me, the correlation between maritime law and the abyss seems very like there's something there.
Oh, there's like it's like a rule over like the underworld.
Correct.
Oh, interesting.
Correct. And we know that like basically the demons operate under legal contracts.
Yeah, it's like the marine. It's like the marine kingdom.
Correct. Yeah. So the marine kingdom, and it's like, we're talking about sirens. We're talking about like, dude, so many things that's a whole. We don't want to open up that can of worms right now. But I believe that there is obviously a direct correlation between the marine kingdom, the abyss, which again, almost everyone these days is believing that these UAPs, UFOs, whatever, they're coming from the ocean. They're coming from the water. Obviously, NASA stopped investigating the ocean at a certain point in time but you've got the Marine Kingdom, you've got the Sirens, you've got like all these things that we don't know enough about, all these creatures that come out of there that very obviously look like aliens of some kind, and then you've got people living on land under maritime law. Like there's obviously a correlation there, but that would be a good deep dive for the three of us to have.
Yeah,
maybe
no
a side
pun intended.
conversation
Deep
outside
dive to the. Okay, so I'll just say this. This will probably not be for YouTube, but this is my theory on reptilians. But anyways, I think that was enough. Hopefully you guys on the Patreon enjoyed that conversation. That again, that probably won't make it to the normal mixtape just because probably for time and for, I mean, who knows where to even cut that and where to leave it in. But
we'll figure it out.
But I appreciate you guys for supporting this podcast. And if you guys do want to watch these episodes early and uncensored, Patreon is the place to do it. Thank you for your support. Also, if you guys want to support this podcast in other ways, please check out the sponsor of this podcast, Modern Roots Life. Get yourself healthy and support a great Christian company and this podcast. Win, win, win. Also, hey, check it out. Got the Jesus Said There Be Haters tank tops in the store just in time for summertime. Sun's out, guns out. Also, if you're looking for coaching for social media, you have a message, you don't know how to say it, check out the echoesoftruthnetwork.com. There's a great crew there, and it would be great if you guys wanted to join them. Either way, regardless, if you can't support the podcast other than just watching, listening, please like, share, and subscribe. Please comment for more. Also, we just love you guys. God bless you, and see you next time.
JT's mixtape, now a short about history, faith and truth, with the sound and the conversation we've never heard before. JT's mixtape, now there's a podcast that has exactly what we've been looking for all of us who will not compromise. Listen, JT created mixtape for us. Woo!